Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. President Trump hints at major military action today and says the U.S. is totally destroying Iran militarily, economically, and otherwise.
The FBI is investigating a fatal shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia as an act of terrorism. What we know about the suspect's criminal history.
And a suspect is dead after allegedly ramming his vehicle into a synagogue near Detroit. The FBI investigating the incident as a targeted attack on the Jewish community.
The Senate fails once again to advance funding for the Department of Homeland Security and what that means for agencies like the TSA with disruptions already affecting airports.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Today's Friday, March 13th. Today's top news. We are starting with the latest developments in the war with Iran. President Trump saying today the U.S. is, quote, totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran militarily, economically, and otherwise.
Yeah, NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus new details about a U.S. aircraft crash during Operation Epic Fury.
President Trump writing on Truth Social that Iran's Navy and Air Force are gone, adding the regime's missiles, drones, and leadership are being eliminated. The president also hinted at additional military action, writing, quote, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller says the United States is crippling Iran's military capabilities. He says never in history has there been a more one-sided annihilation of an enemy than what is unfolding right now in Iran, speaking on Fox News.
We are in the process right now of degrading their entire military industrial base so that they cannot resume creating and building these weapons.
Miller discusses oil prices hitting $100 and Iran attacking vessels and vowing to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
So just again, as a thought experiment, imagine if this regime that right now, weaker than ever before, imagine if that regime instead had nuclear weapons, instead had long-range missiles that could reach an American city, instead was rich with cash. Remember, Obama put them on a path to enrich them with tens of billions of dollars and have a nuclear weapon.
Miller saying such a regime would be a terror to global commerce and to the world.
So instead you have, but let's be very clear, the United States, not Iran, has the staying power. Why? Iran produces 2% of the world's oil. America, under President Trump, is the #1 producer of oil and fossil fuel.
CENTCOM says a U.S. aerial refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq. The crash happened in friendly airspace and involved 2 aircraft. CENTCOM says the loss of the aerial refueling aircraft was not the result of hostile fire or accidental friendly fire. The second aircraft managed to land safely. President Trump says he thinks new Iranian leader Mojtaba Khamenei is alive but damaged. Khamenei has not been seen by Iranians since his selection on Sunday by a clerical assembly. His first alleged comments were read out by a television presenter yesterday.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright says the United States is looking to use its military to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, adding that the Navy will likely be able to do so by the end of March. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And just this morning, Central Command confirming that 4 of 6 crew members have died after the refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq.
The incident is still under investigation, but officials have confirmed the crash was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. The identities of the service members are being withheld until 24 hours after next of kin have been notified.
But our thoughts are surely with them. And soon, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, are expected to give an update on the operation in Iran.
We'll be covering that live for you right here on NTD News. And the Trump administration is considering to allow foreign tankers to help ships domestically produced crude oil to refineries within the United States. And the aim is to boost domestic oil refining and slow down the rising fuel costs. The administration could soon issue a 30-day waiver of the Century-Old Jones Act. And that law requires cargo traveling in domestic waters between U.S. ports be shipped solely aboard vessels that are built, owned, and registered in the U.S. And joining us now for analysis on these Jones Act waivers is Gerard Filitti. He's a Middle East affairs analyst and an attorney specializing in international law. Thank you for joining us this morning, Gerard. Can you explain what this Merchant Marine Act of 1920 is and how the Jones Act sort of comes into play here?
Well, as you said, the Jones Act was passed in 1920 by a Congress that was fresh out of World War I. And it was looking at national security of the United States and saying that we needed a merchant fleet, reliably American, to transport goods between U.S. ports. So the law says that if there is any cargo going between two U.S. ports, it has to be on a vessel that is built in the U.S., owned by a U.S. company, flagged under the United States, and operated primarily by Americans. And this restricts the number of vessels that are available to transport cargo, which drives up the cost.
And Gerard, how will suspending the act, do you view, help to lower prices? How much oil are we talking about? Can it make a sizable impact?
It could make difference of many cents on the dollar per gallon. The issue ultimately is that there are only about 90 ships in the U.S. that are built that meet the qualifications of the Jones Act, whereas you have something in excess of 60,000 oil tankers around the world, which means that American costs, the cost to consumers of getting oil from, let's say, the Gulf to the Northeast, is astronomically higher under the Jones Act than if you were to use any cargo vessel that's available. So other presidents have suspended the Jones Act for 30 days in times of national emergency, usually having to do with hurricanes or national disasters, and this has helped stabilize the price of oil, at least temporarily.
And just for a point of comparison or reference, can you give us any sense of, relative to what comes through the Strait of Hormuz, are we talking maybe 20% capacity that could then be freed up through this executive action?
Well, it's hard to say percentages exactly, but the point ultimately is that all of the ships that come to the U.S. with goods, especially oil tankers that are bringing in oil from somewhere else, then they leave the United States empty. Instead, they can be repurposed to transport oil from, let's say, Gulf refineries to Northeast facilities, or from Gulf production ports to Northeast or the West Coast for a refinery. This would be a significant increase because, as I mentioned before, we only have about 90 tankers in the U.S. that carry oil domestically. So adding to that capacity would be a considerable increase, maybe increasing capacity domestically by 50% or more.
Wow. And do you have any sense on how quickly that could take effect if the president were to take action in the next days or so?
Pretty much as soon as the ink on the executive order is dry. There are plenty of ships that are available now that are in the vicinity of the U.S. that are riding empty on their way back to their home ports. So these could turn around and be put into service, bringing oil domestically. Ultimately, it does reduce the price. One example of how bizarre this situation is sometimes it's cheaper for U.S. companies to rely on foreign flag tankers to take oil, for example, from Texas to the Bahamas or Canada, offload a few gallons and bring it back to New Jersey. It's cheaper to do that than to use Jones Act certified boats. So this really is a huge price differential, and President Trump's order would be a tremendous cost savings for the U.S. public, at least in the short run.
Yeah, and then as we take a look back beyond just the Gulf of America and we look toward the Strait of Hormuz, obviously it seems as if the U.S. doesn't really get much of its oil from the Strait of Hormuz, relatively speaking, being that we produce the most oil here. But it's the global markets that are affected, which then, of course, spikes the prices for everybody. So do you have any sense as to what the oil price could look like, considering that Iran did have some success yesterday in making attacks on oil tankers that were sitting in the Strait of Hormuz?
Regardless of what we do domestically, and this may ease pressure on the U.S., but not on global prices. I think you're very correct in pointing that out. Ultimately, we need to start getting oil flowing through the Gulf again, because on the current trajectory, we could easily see oil in excess of $150 a barrel until traffic is resumed through the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz. And ultimately, it's not just about the oil. It's also about fertilizer and chemicals that are needed in agriculture. This is going to drive up agriculture prices as well. Everything from the price of beef and livestock to the price of grains. So it's critical for the United States to resume traffic through the Strait of Hormuz to neutralize whatever resources the Iranian Navy or government currently has that's threatening these ships, and to resume transit.
Yes, without doubt, being able to shore up that and make it resume its capacity, clearly the best option. There was some talk about potentially lifting sanctions on Russian oil, which is a tremendous irony in and of itself. But do you see that potentially happening, and could that help also to reduce in any meaningful way the spiking of oil prices?
Lifting sanctions on Russian oil could reduce the price a little. We're talking about single-digit percentages. Ultimately, it's much more expensive to transport Russian oil anywhere in the world than it is to transport Gulf oil or American oil for that matter. And it's also a different type of crude oil, which does not process well at many different refineries that are already in existence. So lifting sanctions on Russian oil would benefit Russia, would benefit China, but would not benefit most of the rest of the world.
And Gerard, just as we start to wind down, as you take a step back and look at the entire situation, the oil, the fertilizers, what has been more of a pesky day, certainly yesterday, with Iran able to, impact, with striking the oil tankers, with other sort of acting out. What are you looking at next to see the momentum and the progress currently of the war, whether it will be another week or whether it could drag on for 6 to 8 weeks or longer?
In part, it's what we're already seeing this week. We've seen an increase in the number of Iranian Navy vessels that are on the bottom of the Gulf. President Trump ordered the direct attack on mine layers and other military vessels that were being used to threaten these oil tankers. I think we're also seeing an incremental increase in strikes that are conducted, missile and rocket strikes that are conducted against IRGC and Iranian Navy facilities where they use drones to attack shipping. I think this is the trajectory that we're seeing. We're not expecting this to be over overnight. President Trump did give us a time frame of 4 or 5 weeks. He said that we are ahead of schedule, and we have already seen a tremendous decrease in the number of missiles launched at Israel and especially at Gulf countries. But ultimately, Iran is still fighting, and we do need more time to eliminate their capacity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your analysis this morning, Gerard Filitti.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Alongside the two temporary measures you were speaking about with Gerard there, we also heard this week the release of 400 million barrels of oil from the strategic stockpiles around the world. There's a new oil refinery opening up in Texas. So a lot of different techniques and ways to try and ease the pressure. We'll be watching all of them. And over in Michigan, authorities are now investigating after a man rammed his car into a synagogue.
It's the latest incident amid rising anti-Semitism and violence against the Jewish community. Here's what we know so far.
Just outside Detroit yesterday, authorities are calling it a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. A suspect is dead after driving his vehicle into the Temple Israel Synagogue in West Bloomfield Township and then opening fire on security.
I heard a bang, which was a shot, and grabbed the staff members that were around me, and we ran into my office, which was very close by, and just barricaded the door.
Authorities say one security officer was injured and several first responders are being treated, but no one else from the synagogue was harmed. The building is also home to an early childhood center. The synagogue says all 140 students plus staff and teachers are safe. Rabbi Joshua Bennett was there when it happened.
We are just absolutely amazed at the heroism of our security team, who did exactly what we expected of them. At the same time, we were trained, and all of our staff members, all of our teachers have been trained over the years because we expect these things to happen. We just never want them to be real.
The Department of Homeland Security identifying the suspect as Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard says police are investigating possible explosives inside his car. He couldn't confirm whether the suspect was killed by gunfire or from the blaze that engulfed the car after the crash. The FBI is now taking charge.
Right now is a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community.
President Trump saying he's been briefed on the incident and promising to get to the bottom of it.
And I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today.
Condemnation also coming from Israel, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying anti-Semitism knows no limits. In a post on X, Netanyahu saying Israel is attacked because it is the Jewish state. Temple Israel in Detroit was attacked because it is a Jewish house of worship. Jewish institutions across the U.S. and other parts of the world have been operating with heightened security. It comes after the U.S. and Israel launch Operation Epic Fury against Iran.
The FBI is investigating yesterday's fatal shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia as an act of terrorism.
Authorities say the suspect opened fire inside a classroom of reserve officers, training corps students, and it killed one and it injured two more.
The life of one of our beloved monarchs was taken far too soon, and 2 students were wounded. And I express my deepest condolences to the victims, their families, our campus, and our community. I want to thank law enforcement officers and the first responders who acted so quickly. Their swift response truly saved lives. Those present in the class also saved lives with their bravery and courage in taking down the shooter.
The 36-year-old suspect, identified as Mohammed Baylor Jalloh, is a former Virginia National Guard member. The FBI says he had spent nearly 7 years in prison for attempting to aid the Islamic State. He was released in December 2024, 5 years before his sentence was due to end. It wasn't immediately clear why his release from prison was moved up. The FBI says it has confirmed reports Jalloh shouted Allahu Akbar before opening fire.
Students reportedly subdued and killed Jalloh. Old Dominion says the university will remain closed today with counselors available for students, faculty, and for staff.
Still to come, the Senate fails to advance legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security.
And the department will stay partially closed for the time being.
Meanwhile, the largest housing affordability package passed the Senate yesterday. And we'll take a look at some of the potential changes coming that could make buying a home easier for millions of Americans.
And closing arguments are underway in a closely watched social media addiction trial in Los Angeles. Attorneys for the plaintiff say platforms like Instagram and YouTube were designed to keep teens hooked.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Hi, I'm Jane Seymour, and I spent years on TV playing a doctor. But I learned about the heartbreaking reality of heart disease and stroke when they touched my own life. My father nearly died before having a quadruple bypass and valve replacement that saved him. And my mom, who was my inspiration, suffered a stroke that took away her speech, her ability to move, and ultimately her life. To see someone so vibrant, so positive, who'd survived so much in life, be debilitated by a stroke, it was devastating. And also a wake-up call. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting the American Heart Association. They're doing more every day to stop needless deaths. But they simply can't do their life-saving work without you. So please call now or go to helpheart.org. And for only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your donation will go to work to do amazing things. Like fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I hope that you'll open your heart right now and join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. Give $19 a month, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show that you're part of a community of monthly donors who are helping save lives. A healthy heart is the spirit of life. It makes it possible to do the things that you love, to spend time with your friends and family and fulfill your life's dreams. But so many won't have that chance. Heart disease is America's #1 killer and the #1 killer of women. And that's why I'll do whatever I can to make sure others don't die from heart disease before their time. So please join me. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Everybody in my house knows how to ride a bike except me. People ask, How your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. President Zelensky says Ukraine awaits White House sign-off on a U.S. drone production deal. Joining us to discuss is retired Colonel Darren Gaub. He's a drone expert, former battalion commander, a Black Hawk pilot with the U.S. Army. Darren, thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you. Will we see the U.S. deploy Ukrainian drones in the war with Iran?
Hey, Carrie. Good morning. Certainly we could, I guess. And ultimately, what we're taking advantage of in this case would be Ukraine's expertise in drone warfare that they've developed over the years, both in use of them themselves and in countering them against the Russian drones, which were ultimately made in Turkey in the first place. So it seems like it's reasonable for us to pursue those avenues that have already taken years to prove, both in manufacture of the specific systems and how to apply them in the first place. Because if there's anything that the battlefield in Ukraine and Russia has done, it's proven that drones are a significant part of warfare moving into the future. And that's not only airborne. Ultimately, there's going to be the considerations for that kind of warfare for undersea drones, as well as robotics, artificial intelligence on land as well. So I'd say the odds are better than not that we'll eventually have something from Ukraine in use by America's military and our allies as well.
So my understanding from one of the pressers that General Kane gave is that we did reverse engineer the Iranian drone, and now we're sending those back at them. Can you give us some sense as to the capability of what Ukraine has developed? Is it superior to what the U.S. is currently using? And if you could also comment on, my understanding is this is the first time the U.S. military is using drones in a battle situation. Is that true as well?
It's not true that this is the first time we're using drones in a battlefield scenario. We've been using them for a number of years in their own way. In fact, I used to train their use at the Army's National Training Center in Fort Irwin. Also oversaw their use overseas in Afghanistan and some other countries. Most of what we've done, though, tends to be like what you're picturing on the screen, which is the larger Predators and Reapers and things like that can mount Hellfires and 500-pound bombs. So we've been using them on a larger scale. What Ukraine brings to us uniquely is how to use the capability of a people to mass manufacture smaller drones, sort of like the quadcopters people are used to seeing, that would come off of a shelf almost, that kind of design. And what Ukraine is doing is they're making these in basements of houses and small manufacturing facilities all over their country and putting them into the fight from there in large quantities. What's also unique that they've developed, last point, is in order to get around the ability of other nations to exploit the electronic warfare spectrum and bring drones down, they're flying drones using microfiber filaments. And so you see lines of fiber optics running over the trees all over the woods in Ukraine as they are guided directly using fiber optic cables.
And how does that give an advantage in a military situation, Darren?
It prevents the drone itself from being able to be knocked out of the sky by interfering with the electromagnetic or the radio frequencies connected to between the controller and the drone itself. It makes that a direct connection that can't be interfered with.
Got it. And I want to take a step back from the technology and talk a little bit more about the geopolitical nature of this. If we start using Ukraine's drone technology against Iran, in a way, is there some parallel to what's actually happening on the Ukraine front?
Well, I mean, I guess this is a continuing process of where nations always learn the lessons of other nations in conflict and apply those lessons to their own conflicts. So it's no surprise that we would take what Ukraine is learning and then applying it in Iran, and Russia is doing the same thing on their own side. So this is a normal pattern. I mean, even going back to World War II, the testing grounds for most of the equipment that was used by nations like Germany were tested in the Spanish Civil War. this is a normal course of history. People are going to adopt and apply the things that have already been tested and found to be effective. And this is just one more case of that. It just happens to be that it's us this time, learning the lessons of what Ukraine is teaching the world right now.
And I understand that Russia is using some of the Iranian-made drones against Ukraine. So how, when you look at what's happened in the Russia-Ukraine front, how have their two drone capacities matched up?
Well, they're basically keeping pace with each other and each launching drones against each other. And what's going to be interesting to see is whether or not the conflict in Iran now reduces the supplies that Russia can buy from Iran to use against Ukraine. That's kind of the trend line I'm watching, because what you're going to see in battlefields moving forward, because unfortunately history teaches us that warfare seems to continuously pop up somewhere. You're going to find out that the drones are going to dominate the battle space quite a bit, and like anything else, supply interruptions is going to cause challenges to nations who choose to use them if those systems are coming from another nation. And so this is just one more effect of how the war in Iran could affect the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
So much to look out for with this. And Darren, just in our last 30 seconds, what are you looking at next as you watch from the sidelines what's unfolding on a daily basis over in Iran and the Middle East?
I'm looking at two things. I want to watch and see what the reality of the Straits of Hormuz is, and how oil and other things can pass through the Straits despite Iran's threats, and how effective that may be. And the second thing would be, as the military operation continues, and it looks like military victory is more than likely going to occur, what happens next inside Iran when it comes to their government and their people and what they could potentially establish? Or will it just go the route of another version of the same thing they were before?
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Colonel Darren Gaub. Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry.
And the Treasury Department issues a 30-day license allowing the sale of Russian oil currently stranded at sea. The authorization permits countries to buy Russian crude and petroleum products loaded onto ships as of yesterday. The temporary license runs through April 11th. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the move is aimed at stabilizing global energy markets and keeping prices down amid the Iran war. He says the measure is narrowly tailored and applies only to oil already in transit. Bessent adding the move is not expected to provide significant financial benefit to the Russian government. Energy markets are under pressure, with shipping disrupted through the Strait of Hormuz, as you've been hearing. And the Department of Homeland Security will remain partially shut for now, the Senate yesterday failing once again to advance legislation that would fund the agency. The Senate failed to get the 60-vote supermajority needed to advance the Republican proposal. Democratic lawmakers say they will not support a funding bill unless the administration changes its immigration enforcement policies. The White House and Republican lawmakers are rejecting conditions outlined by Democrats. The White House last month calling the proposal very unserious. Customs and Border Patrol and ICE operations are currently unaffected, having secured funding through 2029. But the Transportation Security Administration is feeling the effects. Absences by TSA officers who are now working without pay are disrupting travel at major airports across the country with long lines and delays.
And the Senate overwhelmingly passed a bipartisan bill yesterday that aims to lower home prices and make housing more affordable for Americans. The bill advances as President Trump pushes new measures that are aimed at improving housing affordability. Here's more on that.
A rare bipartisan breakthrough Thursday.
The yeas are 89, the nays are 10. The bill as amended is passed.
The Senate passing the largest piece of housing affordability legislation in a generation.
This is the biggest package of bills to make housing affordable in 30 years.
The 21st Century Road to Housing Act includes dozens of provisions intended to increase housing supply and lower prices.
This landmark bipartisan bill will help tackle the root cause of this crisis by getting more homes built in every community across this country.
Lawmakers say the package aims to spur more construction, by encouraging local governments to expand housing development and ease zoning restrictions, removing federal regulatory barriers, banning large investors and Wall Street firms from buying new houses, and expanding manufactured housing, which can often be built faster and at lower cost than traditional homes.
Taken together, these reforms represent a common-sense approach to housing policy.
And the bill now heads back to the House, but its fate remains uncertain, as some Republicans are raising concerns about changes made in the Senate.
Meanwhile, the social media trial in Los Angeles is now heading to the jury. NTD's Christina Corona has been following the case for the past 5 weeks and reports on what attorneys said in closing arguments.
The jurors heard closing arguments in the social media addiction trial. The plaintiff's attorney, Mark Lanier, argued that these big tech companies knowingly designed platforms that could harm vulnerable teens. Jurors must now decide whether Instagram and YouTube were negligent in the design of their products. Lanier argues the platforms contributed to serious harm suffered by his plaintiff, Kaylee GM, who is now 20 years old. Jurors must now decide whether Instagram and YouTube were negligent in the design of their products. Lanier argues the platforms contributed to serious harm suffered by his plaintiff, Kaylee GM, who is now 20 years old. Her lawsuit claims the platforms were built to maximize addictiveness among children to drive profits and contributed to her body dysmorphia, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Her legal team says features like endless scrolling, notifications, and beauty filters were intentionally engineered to keep young users engaged. Lanier told jurors the platforms operate using what he described as a slot machine logic, encouraging users to repeatedly check their phones. He also pointed to internal Meta documents, including emails from Mark Zuckerberg, discussing plans to increase time spent on the platform by 12% as part of the 3-year effort to generate an additional $1 billion in revenue. He said YouTube had similar goals, aiming for 1 billion hours of watch time per day by end of 2016. Jurors were also reminded of earlier testimony from a child psychiatrist who said teenagers' developing brains and desire for social approval may make them more vulnerable to addictive online behavior. The plaintiffs argue companies like Meta and YouTube knew about those vulnerabilities and exploited them rather than protecting young users. Meta and YouTube deny the allegations, arguing other factors in Kaylee's life contributed to her mental health struggles. Several survivor parents traveled to Los Angeles hoping to get a seat inside the courtroom and witness the proceedings. Defense attorneys will begin their closing arguments Thursday afternoon. The jury will begin their deliberations as soon as Friday. Reporting from downtown Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Thank you, Christina. And the attorney representing Meta argued that the defendant used social media as a coping mechanism for pre-existing mental health issues, and that none of her therapists identified social media as the cause of those issues.
Attorneys representing YouTube argued that their site is not a social media platform and that the defendant and her family did not use any of the safety features that YouTube offers.
Jurors will begin deliberations on the civil case today, which only requires 9 out of 12 jurors to agree on each count. Coming up, the Energy Department announces the release of 172 million barrels of oil in an effort to lower energy costs.
Senate lawmakers question military leaders about defense technology linked to the Chinese Communist Party and whether NATO allies are prepared to handle these challenges.
And how can the U.S. prevent malicious foreign influence in universities? Senator Bill Cassidy says that $9.7 billion in gifts and contracts went to U.S. schools last year, and with zero accountability.
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube. Yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
we come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. The FBI is investigating yesterday's shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia as an act of terrorism. Authorities say a gunman opened fire inside an ROTC classroom, killing one person and injuring two others. Records show the suspect previously served nearly 7 years in prison for attempting to aid ISIS. And the FBI is investigating a synagogue attack outside Detroit as targeted violence against the Jewish community. Authorities say a man drove a vehicle into Temple Israel Synagogue in West Bloomfield Township and then opened fire on security. The suspect died at the scene. And the Treasury Department has issued a 30-day license allowing the sale of Russian oil that's stranded at sea. The authorization lets countries buy Russian crude oil already loaded onto ships, with the license running through April 11th. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the move aims to stabilize energy markets, and he says it's not expected to provide significant financial benefit to the Russian government. And President Trump says the U.S. is, quote, totally destroying Iran's regime militarily as well as economically. Trump says Iran's Navy and Air Force are gone and its weapons and leadership are now being eliminated. The president also hinted at possible major military action, writing, quote, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today, end quote. Meanwhile, Central Command says a U.S. refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq in friendly airspace. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Steph, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. And President Trump saying Operation Epic Fury is moving along very rapidly. As the president acknowledges short-term pain at the pump for Americans, he insists the greater priority is stopping Iran's regime from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has the details.
The U.S. Central Command announcing that it struck approximately 6,000 targets inside Iran and that it's damaged or destroyed over 90 Iranian vessels. Over 60 of those are ships and over 30 of those are mine-laying boats. And that's as President Trump has recently demanded that Iran immediately remove all mines from the Strait of Hormuz or face military consequences at a, quote, level never seen before.
The situation with Iran is moving along very rapidly. It's doing very well. Our military is unsurpassed. There's never been anything like it.
President Trump declaring Iran decimated, saying the U.S. is destroying the regime's Navy and Air Force.
Most people say it's already been won. It's just a question of when. When do we stop? We don't want to let it regrow, and ideally would like to see somebody in there that knows what they're doing.
This coming as the U.S. says starting next week, it will release 172 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower energy costs as Brent crude hovers near or above $100 a barrel.
We'll fill it up. We'll fill up our reserve. We're going to tap it out.
President Trump highlighting America's record-breaking oil output, over 20 million barrels a day in recent years, saying, quote, when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. But of far greater interest and importance to me as president is stopping an evil empire, Iran, from having nuclear weapons and destroying the Middle East and indeed the world. Acknowledging that short-term pain at the pump is tough, the president argues the real stakes are preventing a threat he calls existential for the region and beyond.
It's an evil country, and it's been for 47 years that way.
So we're going to release 172 million barrels and swap it for more than 200 million barrels that'll be back in the reserve within a year. So ultimately, this is going to help us fill the reserve, but we need the oil in the short term for a short-term pain for long-term gain.
Meanwhile, the White House calling for an immediate retraction of a recent ABC News report alleging an Iranian drone threat to the West Coast, criticizing the outlet for, quote, providing false information to intentionally alarm the American people. Press Secretary Leavitt slamming the report for basing itself solely on one unverified intelligence tip, a detail omitted by the network, and assuring Americans, quote, no such threat from Iran to our homeland exists, and it never did. This comes while the White House is condemning the media broadly for its coverage of the strikes in Iran. From pushing the narrative, there has been, quote, mixed messaging about the objectives of Operation Epic Fury to airing uninterrupted segments of Iranian state TV.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. You know you are being disingenuous, and he made a determination to launch Operation Epic Fury based on all of those reasons, and I would like the media to actually report on all of them, rather than just picking sound bites from one person in this administration and saying, oh, they're contradicting the other person. No, again, these decisions are not made in a vacuum.
And this is coming as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that the U.S. will begin escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as is, quote, militarily possible. Reporting from the White House, Mari Otsu, NTD News.
And thanks to Mari for that report. Soon, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane are expected to give an update on the operation in Iran.
That's right. We're going to be covering that live for you right here on NTD News. Next, War Secretary Pete Hegseth says a new task force will review war colleges to ensure that they are effective. The secretary is saying professional military education should produce warfighters, not what he calls wokesters.
At the Department of War, we have a duty to ensure that our professional military education develops real leaders, warfighters who dominate into the future. We're committed to making our own senior service colleges maintain the highest of standards, that those places align with President Trump's commitment to the American people, that our military will remain the strongest in history.
Hegseth says the task force will identify any deficiencies in colleges like the Army War College and the National Defense University and make sure they're focused on core national security issues. The task force will have to produce a report on its findings within 90 days. The move comes after Hegseth last month ordered service members not to attend universities like Princeton, Columbia, and MIT, saying they are teaching, in his words, the enemy's wicked ideologies. The secretary saying yesterday he wants to make sure, quote, what we've seen in our civilian institutions never surfaces in our military education institutions.
And military commanders facing questions about Chinese Communist Party-linked technology, China's presence in global ports, and whether NATO allies are prepared to take a larger role in Europe's defense.
NTD's Chris Bobb reports on yesterday's Senate hearing.
North Korean troops and materiel, Iranian drone technology, and Chinese economic support enable Moscow to sustain its war in Ukraine.
On Capitol Hill Thursday, lawmakers questioning military leaders about vulnerabilities at home from the Chinese Communist Party, including how U.S. military equipment is tracked through wireless tags as it moves across the country, and how prepared the U.S. is to take on China.
One of the largest manufacturers of those tags and the technology is owned by a parent company with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP could utilize these tracking technologies to monitor our military movements. What can we do about that?
There are lots of other things that move in the commercial space, and that itself makes it very, very hard for folks to track our equipment.
You know, with China, are we prepared with our current maritime industry to support a long-term conflict with a near-peer adversary?
I'll tell you that if we were given the task to go today, we would all go.
Senator Ted Budd pressing the head of U.S. Transportation Command on the risks posed by Chinese and Russian naval activity and commercial infrastructure overseas.
What concerns does Transcom have regarding Chinese and Russian naval deployments and commercial investments in ports across the globe?
When it comes to the Chinese fleet deployments, we go one step further to track their footprint, infrastructure, and what types of things that they put in place, mainly in seaports. So we keep a very close eye on their electronic systems, cranes. We work with port authorities to make sure that we know where those are, and then we operate in ways to circumvent that.
With President Trump pushing NATO allies to spend 5% of GDP on defense, military officials updated the committee on improvements to the capabilities of allied forces, including the planned replacement of any technology made in China.
If allies use part of this funding to rip and replace high-tech Chinese technology, how would that contribute to EUCOM's mission?
Senator, we want Chinese technology out of anything related with the defense of the United States or Europe or across the alliance. And so we focus our efforts to help our allies identify where they have Chinese technology in their information networks, particularly their defense information networks. And then, there's Chinese technology and ownership across much of the infrastructure that folks like General Reed would rely on to flow forces either across or into the continent.
Do all of our NATO allies share our concern about Chinese technology?
They absolutely understand the threat and the risk, and they take action.
Hearing testimony confirmed that many European allies are already meeting or approaching 5% of GDP in defense spending, with plans to gradually build military capabilities through 2030. Military officials say this progress will allow NATO to assume a stronger leadership role in Europe's conventional defense, helping secure forces and infrastructure against threats from China, Russia, and other adversaries. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Chris Bobb, NTD News.
Thank you, Chris. And the U.S. Senate is examining the issue of malign foreign influence at U.S. colleges and universities and what can be done about it. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has the takeaways from yesterday's hearing on Capitol Hill.
We need to know if other countries are trying to steal research or influence our campuses with an anti-American ideology.
Senate lawmakers and experts discuss the problem of maliciously intended foreign influence at U.S. universities.
I think it was a 2019 Senate investigation revealed that Chinese intellectual property theft on campus robbed us of $200 to $600 billion a year.
But did you know that in China they passed 2 laws that require all nationals, not just their students, but all nationals to cooperate with the CCP and provide information on demand?
I'm concerned, yes, that we are in a situation where the Chinese students are subject to state pressure to cooperate with their government. Even if they don't want to, they will.
Senator Bill Cassidy says that in 2020, the Department of Justice indicted a Harvard University chemistry chairman for lying about his affiliation with China's Thousand Talents plan.
A research recruitment program run by the Chinese Communist Party to lure talented Chinese students back to China.
Dr. Peter Wood says that China's Confucius Institutes, which have a history of influencing Americans, have rebranded, but their goal remains the same.
What do Americans actually know about China? Well, if they are engaged in universities with Confucius Institutes or their successors, they're not learning anything about the South China Sea, Tibet, the Uyghurs, organ harvesting, the vast number of mischievous things, let's call them, that China engages in and that the American public knows very little about.
Another expert explained that some American universities that have campuses in other countries don't have full control over what's taught there.
In many of these cases, the host government nation, China or Qatar, is in charge of curricula development.
Is that true?
Yes.
So you're talking about an American Institute of Higher Education.
Correct.
Prestigious.
Yes.
Who gets the dollars.
Yes.
But they would cede authorship of their curriculum to another?
That's correct.
Largely, there was a bipartisan agreement that the U.S. needs to find ways to deal with these issues without excluding people or groups that do make donations or study at U.S. colleges without malicious intent. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thank you, Jason. And coming up, several women joined the president and the first lady at the White House to celebrate Women's History Month. First Lady Melania Trump emphasizing the crucial role women play in keeping a strong nation.
Hi, I'm Jane Seymour, and I spent years on TV playing a doctor. But I learned about the heartbreaking reality of heart disease and stroke when they touched my own life. My father nearly died before having a quadruple bypass and valve replacement that saved him. And my mom, who was my inspiration, suffered a stroke that took away her speech, her ability to move, and ultimately her life. To see someone so vibrant, so positive, who'd survived so much in life, be debilitated by a stroke, it was devastating. and also a wake-up call. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting the American Heart Association. They're doing more every day to stop needless deaths. But they simply can't do their life-saving work without you. So please call now or go to helpheart.org. And for only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your donation will go to work to do amazing things, like fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I hope that you'll open your heart right now and join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org, give $19 a month, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show that you're part of a community of monthly donors who are helping save lives. A healthy heart is the spirit of life. It makes it possible to do the things that you love, to spend time with your friends and family and fulfill your life's dreams. But so many won't have that chance. Heart disease is America's #1 killer and the #1 killer of women. And that's why I'll do whatever I can to make sure others don't die from heart disease before their time. So please join me. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. At Women's History Month celebration at the White House, several women share how the administration's policies have influenced their lives directly.
First Lady Melania Trump expressing how crucial women are to shaping America's next generation. And NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Honoring Women's History Month at a White House celebration, the First Lady has a message to women.
Make time for yourself, educate yourself daily, and spread your passion. Be courageous and take risks. Advance your profession through inspiration.
The First Lady encouraging women to be bold leaders while keeping children at the center, acknowledging the importance of shaping the next generation.
The strength of America is closely tied to the role women play in shaping their children's character, education, and morals.
Several women from different walks of life gathered to share their stories, one of them a 3-time Olympic gold medalist. U.S. Olympic bobsledder Kaylee Humphreys awarded President Trump her Order of Ecos Medal for his work in keeping women's sports for women.
I want to recognize the support and the impact you've had on women's sports throughout the Olympic movement, specifically standing up to keep biological women in women's sports, to keep the field of play safe and allow for fair competition.
President Trump acknowledging the women who shaped our nation over the past 250 years and vowing to prioritize women in his policymaking and children in his school choice initiatives.
And that's done so that American moms can send their children to a school that shares their values and everything else. The Trump administration listens to women and moms, which is why we are doing more to help women struggling with infertility than any administration in history.
A waitress from North Carolina expressing gratitude for the new tax changes the president signed into law last year.
I had to do a double take. I had to do my taxes twice to make sure this was real. I couldn't believe it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Another attendee, the wife of a Virginia farmer.
Your support of American agriculture through your changes
and updates of the estate tax relief for family farms has allowed families like mine the opportunity to ensure that my daughters can farm one day.
The president also signed a proclamation to recognize and honor Women's History Month. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
That's right. That proclamation making March Women's History Month for the first time ever. So here it shall be, hereforth.
Henceforth. Women's History Month in March. That's beautiful. Well, look, we do have to wrap up the show here, but if you have any feedback or there's a story you'd like to see us cover, please send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. We'll see you soon.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. We are looking at a shot of the Pentagon press room right now. Very soon, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will give an update on the operation in Iran, and we'll be following that live.
And President Trump hints at major military actions today and says the U.S. is totally destroying Iran, militarily, economically, and otherwise.
The FBI is investigating a fatal shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia as an act of terrorism. What we know about the suspect's criminal history.
Senate fails once again to advance funding for the Department of Homeland Security. What that means for agencies like the TSA, with disruptions already affecting airports.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Today's Friday, March 13th. You're watching NTD Good Morning. In today's top news, soon Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Kane are expected to give an update on the operation in Iran.
We're going to be covering that live right here for you on NTD News.
Meanwhile, the latest developments in the war with Iran. President Trump saying today the U.S. is, quote, totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran militarily, economically, and otherwise.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus new details about a U.S. aircraft crash during Operation Epic Fury.
President Trump writing on Truth Social that Iran's Navy and Air Force are gone, adding the regime's missiles, drones, and leadership are being eliminated. The president also hinted at additional military action, writing, quote, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller says the United States is crippling Iran's military capabilities. He says never in history has there been a more one-sided annihilation of an enemy than what is unfolding right now in Iran, speaking on Fox News.
We are in the process right now of degrading their entire military industrial base so that they cannot resume creating and building these weapons.
Miller discusses oil prices hitting $100 and Iran attacking vessels and vowing to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
So just again, as a thought experiment, imagine if this regime that right now, weaker than ever before, imagine if that regime instead had nuclear weapons, instead had long-range missiles that could reach an American city, instead was rich with cash. Remember, Obama put them on a path to enrich them with tens of billions of dollars and have a nuclear weapon.
Miller saying such a regime would be a terror to global commerce and to the world.
So what instead you have is a dying regime, a decaying regime, a thrashing regime that is engaged in terrorism in the Strait of Hormuz. But let's be very clear. The United States, not Iran, has the staying power. Why? Iran produces 2% of the world's oil. America, under President Trump, is the #1 producer of oil and fossil fuel.
CENTCOM says a U.S. aerial refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq. The crash happened in friendly airspace and involved 2 aircraft. CENTCOM says the loss of the aerial refueling aircraft was not the result of hostile fire or accidental friendly fire. The second aircraft managed to land safely. President Trump says he thinks new Iranian leader Mojtaba Khamenei is alive but damaged. Khamenei has not been seen by Iranians since his selection on Sunday by a clerical assembly. His first alleged comments were read out by a television presenter yesterday.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright says the United States is looking to use its military to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, adding that the Navy will likely be able to do so by the end of March. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you, Daniel, for that report. And we are just waiting for a presser to come with Hegseth and General Dan Kane, but we'll be bringing that up as it comes. Just this morning, Central Command confirming that 4 of 6 crew members have died after the refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq. However, we will cut now live to that presser.
I'll start, as we often do here at the Department of War, with the bottom line up front. For the world to hear and the press to actually admit that the United States is decimating the radical Iranian regime's military in a way the world has never seen before. Never before has a modern, capable military, which Iran used to have, been so quickly destroyed and made combat ineffective, devastated. We said it would not be a fair fight, and it has not been. As I stated during our first press conference on day 2, that was 10 short days ago, the combination of the world's 2 most powerful air forces is unprecedented and unbeatable. Between our air force and that of the Israelis, over 15,000 enemy targets have been struck. That's well over 1,000 a day. No other combination of countries in the world can do that. So today, as we speak, we fly over the top of Iran and Tehran. Fighters and bombers all day picking targets as they choose. As our intelligence gets better and better and more refined. Looking up, the IRGC and Iranian regime sees only two things on the side of aircraft: the stars and stripes and the Star of David. The evil regime's worst nightmare. Iran has no air defenses. Iran has no air force. Iran has no navy. Their missiles, their missile launchers and drones being destroyed or shot out of the sky. Their missile volume is down 90%. Their one-way attack drones yesterday, down 95%. And as the world is seeing, they are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with. We have been dealing with it and don't need to worry about it. We're on plan to defeat, destroy, disable all of their meaningful military capabilities at a pace the world has never seen before. But it's not just that Iran doesn't have a functioning air force, or that their entire navy is at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, or their missile force is shrinking daily. Even more importantly, they also don't have the ability to build more. That's the most important component I'd like to emphasize today. Soon and very soon, all of Iran's defense companies will be destroyed. For example, as of 2 days ago, Iran's entire ballistic missile production capacity, every company that builds every component of those missiles, has been functionally defeated, destroyed. Buildings, complexes, and factory lines all across Iran destroyed. So we're shooting down and destroying what missiles they still have in stock, but more importantly, ensuring that they have no ability to make more. Their production lines, their military plants, their defense innovation centers defeated. Iran's leadership is in no better shape. Desperate and hiding, they've gone underground, cowering. That's what rats do. We know the new so-called not-so-supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured. He put out a statement yesterday, a weak one, actually, but there was no voice and there was no video. It was a written statement. He called for unity. Apparently killing tens of thousands of protesters is his kind of unity. Iran has plenty of cameras and plenty of voice recorders. Why a written statement? I think you know why. His father, dead. He's scared, he's injured, he's on the run, and he lacks legitimacy. It's a mess for them. Who's in charge? Iran may not even know. With every passing hour, we know, and we know they know, that the military capabilities of their evil regime are crumbling. They can barely communicate, let alone coordinate. They're confused, and we know it. Our response? We will keep pressing. We will keep pushing, keep advancing. No quarter, no mercy for our enemies. Yet some in this crew, in the press, just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business, and I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you, if it can be admitted. Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday, war widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground? You see, Iran's leaders are hiding in bunkers and moving into civilian areas. The only thing that is widening is our advantage. Not to mention our Gulf partners stepping up even more, now going on the offense. and have always been with us on the defense with collective and integrated air defenses. Our will, it is unshakable. Our options, maximized, and our capabilities still building. We're going up, they're going down. As I said from the start, President Trump holds the cards. He'll determine the pace, the tempo, and the timing of this conflict. His hand firmly on the wheel, as well as on the throttle setting. America first, peace through strength in action. From day one, as our nation expects and the president demands, our warriors have fought with lethality, precision, and rapid innovation. In fact, today will be, yet again, the highest volume of strikes that America has put over the skies of Iran and Tehran. The number of sorties and number of bomber pulses, the highest yet, ramping up and only up. And quantity has a quality of its own as we continue to ramp up. Every tool of AI, of cyber, of space, EW, counter-UAS, you name it, we're employing it. Blinding, confusing, and deceiving our enemy. Because we know who the good guys are here. And the American people do too. And that makes my job simple. I serve God, the troops, the country, the Constitution, and the President of the United States, and answer only to those. All in service of victory on the battlefield and the military objectives that we've laid out from day one. Defeat the missiles, missile launchers, and defense industrial base, which I laid out today. Defeat the Navy and deny Iran the ability to have a nuclear weapon. Clear, decisive, achievable. And Admiral Cooper knows, the CENTCOM commander who we spent a couple of hours with last night, that in pursuit of those objectives, we have his back in every way. His commanders know that, and so do the troops in harm's way. Admiral Cooper gets what he needs, the assets, the authorities, the munitions, you name it. We will stop at nothing to win. War is hell. War is chaos. And as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen. American heroes, all of them. And as I have with all of them, as we have, we will greet those heroes at Dover, and their sacrifice will only recommit us to the resolve of this mission. But war in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary, which is why each day on bended knee we continue to appeal to heaven, to Almighty God's providence, to watch over and give special skill and confidence to our leaders and to our warriors. To those warriors who this nation prays for every single day, I hear from all of you out there who pray for them every day. Stay on bended knee and pray for them. I continue to say to them, Godspeed. May the Lord bless you and keep going. Mr. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today. Before I start with an update, I also want to address the tragic loss of our KC-135 refueling aircraft yesterday. The incident occurred over friendly territory in western Iraq while the crew was on a combat mission, and again was not the result, as CENTCOM has said, was not the result of hostile or friendly fire. We're still treating this as an active rescue and recovery operation. As CENTCOM announced this morning, 4 airmen have been recovered, and the Air Force and U.S. Central Command will provide updates as information becomes available. Please keep these brave airmen, their families, friends, and units in your thoughts in the coming hours and days. Our service members make an incredible sacrifice to go forward and do the things that the nation asks of them. It's a reminder of the true cost of the dedication and commitment of the Joint Force. We're also aware of a fire on board the USS Gerald R. Ford. We're thinking about the crew there who were injured in the fire. We believe and hope that everyone will be okay, and we're grateful for that. And for any further questions on that, we'd refer you to NAVCENT or to the Navy. This morning, we enter the 13th day of Operation Epic Fury, and we continue to make progress towards our military objectives. As the Secretary said, today will be our heaviest day of kinetic fires across the operating area. CENTCOM continues to attack ballistic missile and drone capabilities so that they are no longer a threat to U.S. forces, our bases, or our partners. They're continuing to destroy the Iranian Navy to ensure freedom of navigation, and this means going after Iran's mine-laying capability and destroying their ability to attack commercial vessels. And we're targeting their defense industrial base so they cannot rebuild the capabilities that can harm America's interests or our partners in the future. As Admiral Cooper said in his update on Wednesday, Iranian combat power continues to decline as a result of the continued strikes, as the Secretary talked about. We've attacked over 6,000 targets, and our strike packages continue to launch every hour, and we've maintained an unprecedented number of sorties up overhead of Iran. CENTCOM is now persistently over the enemy, and a result, we've seen a reduction in missile and one-way attack fires, as the Secretary said. In less than 2 weeks, we've rendered the Iranian Navy combat ineffective and continue to attack naval vessels, including all of their Soleimani-class warships, which were armed with anti-ship missiles and anti-aircraft weapons. We've made progress, but Iran still has the capability to harm friendly forces and commercial shipping. And our work on this effort continues. But I want to make something clear. The only thing preventing commercial traffic and flow through the Straits right now, which there is some through the Straits, is Iran. They are the belligerents here holding the Straits closed, although there is some traffic moving through there. We've made it a priority to target Iran's mine-laying enterprise, their mine layers, the naval bases and depots, in addition to the missiles that could influence the Straits. And CENTCOM continues to attack those efforts. And we continue to make progress on the industrial base to include factories, weapons, warehouses that are stored in, and we will continue to do so in the coming days, especially today. Now, as I often do, I want to share a little bit about our incredible joint force. Today, I'm going to talk about our incredible artillery force comprised of American soldiers and Marines who've been sinking ships, destroying depots, and launching Army tactical missile systems, or ATACMS, precision strike missiles, or PrSMs, and high-mobility rocket systems, or HIMARS. From outside Iran, our Army and Marine artillerymen are hitting sites that Iran relies on to project power beyond their borders and protect our deployed. In just the first 13 days of this operation, our artillery forces have made history. They fired the first precision strike missiles ever used in combat, reaching deep into enemy territory. They've used Army ATACMS to sink multiple ships, including a submarine, and they've done all of this with the precision and determination that comes from relentless training and trust in each other and in their weapon systems. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of speaking with some of our young soldiers from the 3rd Battalion, 27th Field Artillery Regiment out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the unit and the crew that fired the first precision strike missiles. The soldiers I met came from all over this great country: New York, Texas, Delaware, California. One had been in the Army only 6 months and been in the unit for 2 months and was already deployed. He was the youngest at 20, but you would not know it from the way that they talked about their mission. The others were 22 and 28 years old. They spoke with a sense of calm pride, purpose, and clarity that tells you clearly they understand the weight of what they're doing and the people who depend on them. I asked them to walk me through a fire mission. I asked not just what they do, but what they feel, especially those first crew members on this particular mission. These soldiers basically live in these vehicles behind us. The cab, very tight, 2 folks sit next to each other with the crew commander behind them. It's jammed inside there with their personal weapons and kit, and they sit and wait for a fire mission. And when that fire mission comes, they close the armored doors and begin to program the systems. They then throw 3 simple toggle switches, and 10 to 15 feet behind them, a rocket motor ignites, and the round is headed downrange to do the nation's work. I asked these youngsters, these young, awesome Americans, what does that feel like? And one of them just looked at me and said, it's awesome. No drama, no hesitation, in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, in the sun, the rain, in the snow, flawless execution. Their Marine counterparts are out there doing the same thing every night. Same work, same pressure, same expectations, same results. And we hand tremendous and enormous responsibility to these young Americans. And they carry it with a level of maturity, grit, professionalism, and tenacity that makes me incredibly proud to be a part of their joint force. Their parents and families would and should be incredibly proud. And their leaders and I trust them to do the deeds that they must do in difficult circumstances every single time. I also want to touch today I want to touch for a moment today on their leadership. These young Americans are led by extraordinary young leaders out at the tactical edge. Yesterday, the battery commander and her NCO were there with this crew on the same video screen. The two of them hardly said a word. They didn't have to. In their eyes, and in particular the commander's eyes, you could see the quiet trust and confidence she had in these soldiers and the rest of their battery. It came through loud and clear, and we appreciate their leadership. When I asked these soldiers yesterday, what is it that you need from the Secretary and I, they looked at each other, paused for a moment, and looked back at me and said, more rounds, sir. It was awesome. So thank you to those soldiers and Marines out on the firing line supporting our mission, and thank you to their families. Our joint force will continue today to deliver dynamic fires against the enemy from the land, sea, and air. We remain deeply grateful for their service, and for the third time today, I'll mention that today will be our busiest day. This mission remains complex, dangerous, and difficult, and every service member has a family waiting for them to return home. And I want to thank all of the families today who are supporting their deployed forces and those doing the work here in the States. On a personal note today, I also want to thank the Joint Staff and the team that I have the pleasure of working with, some of them right here in this room. They are working 24 hours a day to deliver the options that we must to the Secretary and to the President. Today, as I close, I ask that we remember our fallen and those participating in the recovery operations to bring home our lost KC-135 crew, that we keep those service members and their families in their thoughts and prayers. Those are very, very, very tough days when that knock comes on the door for people on both sides of the door. Again, thank you to our deployed, thank you to our fallen, and to their families, and to the Joint Force. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Alexandra Ingersoll, One America News. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Strait of Hormuz and when it might be fully operational again? And how do we ensure our objective of denying Iran a nuclear weapon if they continue to align with our adversaries?
So I'll take it and chime in, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like it all. I want to emphasize what the chairman said about that. The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a reason why we chose as one of our primary objectives to destroy the Navy. We understood the ability to interdict shipping is something Iran has done for 40 years. It's key terrain. They've used it as leverage. The world is seeing what they'll do to fight back in that context. And so we've heard them talk about taking various measures, and we're planning for all of them. So we have a plan for every option here. We're working with our interagency partners, and that's not a strait we're going to allow to remain contested or with a lack of flow of commercial goods. So we're aware of that. We're laser focused on our military objectives, but also want to make sure our partners across this government understand we're working with you to make sure that energy flows. And that's an important part. And the second question was on the nuclear capability. As we said from the beginning, their strategy shifted just from defense of their nuclear facilities to a conventional umbrella of so many missiles that no one would challenge their ability to the opportunity to defeat their nuclear capabilities. And it was growing by the day. So with Iran at its weakest moment, going at that ballistic missile capability creates an opportunity to ensure at any point in time that Iran give up their nuclear capabilities, or if need be, you prevent them from doing it, as the president has done once already with Operation Midnight Hammer, obliterating those capabilities. So the conventional side is a huge part at getting at denying nuclear capabilities, if you have anything you want to add.
Appreciate the question. I'm not going to comment on what we may or may not be thinking about any options that the Joint Force could be tasked to do in the future, whether it's on the nuke matter or anything else. Thank you.
But we have options.
The mines that are in the Strait of Hormuz and our ability to, obliterate them?
We retain a range of options to solve a whole variety of problems, and that is one set of options that we have, that we hold on to. So,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Mary Margaret with Daily Wire. Thank you both for the update. ABC News has updated its story from yesterday, clarifying that the FBI report on Iran possibly striking California was unverified. I just want to ask you, what impact did that original reporting have on the public, and does Iran even have the ability to conduct such a strike? And then just really quickly on another note, what role did Vice President Vance play in counseling the president on this conflict? Can you speak to some of the media reporting suggesting that there is a division there?
That reporting on California obviously had no impact on us. Also, we're used to bad reporting. We're used to ill-informed reporting. And so it doesn't change how we operate, but we engage with it to prove that it's not true, as CENTCOM has done so well. Ultimately, I look at the reports on a daily basis of our interagencies all over it. My partners across government are all over, looking for indications and warnings, keeping the American people safe. There's a lot of things Iran has said it can do for a long time, thankfully, including engaging their proxies and getting them involved in the fight, which they haven't been able to do. So we're watching that very closely. And as far as the vice president, he's an incredible leader of this team as well, alongside the president and the Secretary of State. I can't say enough great stuff about this team, how it works together, how it provides options to the president, and the vice president every single day is a key voice in that, an indispensable voice in that, actually. In the middle there, red tie. Yes.
Michael Gordon, Wall Street Journal. Iran is thought to have 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium in at least 2 locations and several thousand kilograms of lower purity material. Can you conclude this mission successfully without physically taking control of that material, or are you counting on diplomatic negotiations to provide some measure of control leading to its removal? You've mentioned missiles, you've mentioned drones, military industry. You haven't stipulated that taking care of that material is a mission priority.
We've said from the beginning, deny Iran nuclear weapons as a core mission. We retain options across the spectrum to ensure that they never do. And President Trump has said that. And that's why this mission actually couldn't have been possible without Midnight Hammer. Without what those B-2s did going across and obliterating those facilities, that set the condition for the opportunity to do what we're doing now. So the president's kept his eye focused on nuclear capabilities. And I will say we have a range of options, up to and including Iran deciding that they will give those up, which of course we would welcome. They weren't willing to do in negotiations. I would never tell this group or the world what we're willing to do or how far we're willing to go, but we have options for sure. Right next to him.
Me?
No, right there.
Right here, sir? Right here? I'll take it for
Quarter
sure.
zip right there, yep. No, you, yep.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can you please provide some guidance? It's been 13 days in. Can you please provide some guidance, both of you, about the strike on the girls' school? There has been reporting that indicates that preliminary inquiry, even though it's ongoing, has determined that the airstrike was carried out by the United States. Given that there is another competing narrative that this was done intentionally, can you provide us with some guidance about whether this was the case? Secondly, we are also getting, we had heard yesterday from Energy Secretary Wright that said that the U.S. Navy would not be ready until the end of the month to provide escorts through the Strait of Hormuz. Is that an accurate assessment? And if so, can you tell us why? Thank you.
Well, with an issue on your first topic, an issue of such seriousness, we're not going to let reporting lead us or force our hand into indicating what happened in a particular situation, because the truth matters. So I can report that CENTCOM has designated an investigating officer to complete a command investigation. The command investigation will take as long as necessary to address all the matters surrounding this incident. And the investigating officer is from outside CENTCOM and is a general officer. But I will note to this group and to the world, there's only one entity in this conflict between us and Iran that never targets civilians. Literally never targets civilians. I look at the process that's used on dynamic strikes or on boat strikes and others. We have a very high fidelity process in that case. So we don't target. Iran does. We will investigate. We'll get to the truth, and we'll share it when we have it. Absolutely. And what was the second
question? About the Strait of Hormuz, about the Navy. Secretary Wright.
It's a tactically complex environment, and before I think we want to take anything through there at scale, we want to make sure that we do the work pursuant to our current military objectives to do that safely and smartly. So we're continuing to develop.
And we do a lot of work.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is it is dynamic, but this is, I think, almost by 20% the largest day of strikes. And as I said, our intelligence just gets better and better. That feedback loop feeds itself. And as we refine those targets, it exponentially increases what we can hit and why, to include strategic things the world's talking about and looking at. And it's our job to have a plan for it, which we do, to address it, and ensure that the president has options. We've done that from the beginning in this department. He'll have options on that topic as well. Right here.
The United States,
Thank you.
that strike, sir.
An investigation is an investigation. That's what it is. It doesn't mean anything other than that. Yes.
Ryan Morgan with the Epic Times. Regarding today's busy day of strikes, last week you guys discussed the progress of the air campaign to gain air superiority and to transition from these standoff weapons launched at range to more overhead strikes. Can you now say that these strikes today are going to rely entirely on stand-in over-the-top weapons, or are standoff range weapons still in play?
It's a great question. I can say, based on the report I read this morning at 0600, only 1% of the munitions we're using today are standoff munitions. The rest are over-the-top, the types of which we have a plethora. Which was our goal from the beginning. You use standoff, which are more exquisite. You transition to a much larger magazine depth, ensuring that you're preserving all the capabilities you have and your options across the force. Absolutely.
Has Iran placed any mines
Right
since
here.
the war
Lisa.
started? Is Iran placing new mines?
We've heard them talk about it, just like you've reported recklessly and wildly about it. But we have no clear evidence. We have no clear evidence of that.
Thank you,
Right
sir. Mr. Secretary, given everything the U.S. have accomplished in the last 24 hours, as of today, how do you define success in this military option? And has that definition changed from day one? And also regarding Iran government telling countries hosting U.S. American bases that they could face attacks, what is the Pentagon doing about that?
First question is, what is the objective?
How do you define success as of today?
Yeah, I mean, we define success, again, 13 days in, by reaching the military objectives that we've laid out. Launchers, missile launchers, defense industrial base, their Navy, the ability to project power in the naval sense, leading toward denying them to get a nuclear weapon. And we've got internal metrics that look at that we represent to the president, who then can decide how long he'd like to continue in pursuit of those military objectives. So that hasn't changed. There's a lot of things a lot of people talk about. What they want us to do, or what we should do, or what we should stay focused on. And again, I've addressed this before, and I think it's worth saying again, mission creep or expansive missions or prolonged timelines or democracy building or nation building, you name it, has not been part of what President Trump wants us to be involved in. We're solving for something here, this particular mission set, but also recognizing this country's conditioned to previous leaders, whether it's George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Joe Biden, who had these expansive, nebulous mission sets that kept changing all the time. So the timeline kept moving, and we kept pouring more troops in and on the ground. And then pretty soon everyone wonders, like I did in Afghanistan in 2012, what's our mission here? I'm not clear what it is. We're taking the opposite approach here and saying we've defined these objectives. We're pursuing those objectives. The president has his hand on the throttle and will decide ultimately, when they've been reached, that serve the purposes of the United States of America, American interests first.
And regarding the threats to countries hosting...
Yeah, right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Polls show over 80% of Republicans support the president's military action in Iran, but there's some consternation in parts of the party, particularly from your fellow Fox News alum, Tucker Carlson. He called the war disgusting and evil, and then said of unconditional surrender, which the president has called for, means foreign troops get to rape your wives and daughters. Have you heard these comments, and what's your reaction to them?
We're busy executing on behalf of great patriotic Americans with a clear mission that's 47 years overdue, and we're going to execute on that regardless of what people say about it. Yeah, right here.
You have said that the U.S. military has essentially aerial superiority, naval superiority over Iran, yet we're not escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Why? How did you not plan for this?
We planned for it. We recognize it. Because ultimately we want to do it sequentially in a way that makes the most sense for what we want to achieve, and ensure that we're sending the right signals to the world when we do so. So when Chris Wright speaks or we speak, it's based on a full assessment of what we're up against, what we want to say to the world, how that we want them to see and understand the conflict. It's like this whole idea of the war widening. That's what the press wants to make it look like it's widening and chaos is ensuing. No, we're actually closing in on grabbing hold of and controlling what objectives we want to achieve and how we want to achieve them. It's called shaping operations and setting the conditions. But when you shape the environment, you don't always tell. I mean, foolish political leaders and foolish military leaders of the past will hang an exact deadline on it. Or here's exactly when we'll do what we're going to do. Or here's how long it's going to take us. And then if you meet that, maybe you meet it. But if you don't, you fail. And if you're far beyond, we know exactly what we're shaping and why. We're sending those signals working across the interagency. The Strait of Hormuz is something we've paid attention to from the beginning. And the American people can rest assured we will ensure that our interests are advanced, no doubt. Yeah, right there, green jacket.
Mike Brass with the Washington Examiner. How many American casualties have there been, and where were the American service members when they were injured?
I mean, it's a bunch of return to duty. So we've had the large majority have gone in for some medical treatment and return to duty. We've had in Kuwait, Jordan, down across the southern flank a little bit, a variety of places, most from one-way attack strikes.
But I want to clarify that. I think what we've tried to do here is clarify those numbers rather than saying KIA or WIA wounded. Be more clear about that because the overwhelming majority, almost 90%, thank God, are returned to duty. Minor injuries returned to duty, and so that number can look a certain way, and our job is to add some fidelity to it. Absolutely, right here.
Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. David Zia, Real America's Voice. Can you share what types of munitions have been used on the attacks on commercial shipping? Have any hit mines? And are USVs, unmanned surface vehicles, being used? And just a quick follow-up, were there any arrests in Fort Campbell with the drone thefts?
I'm not familiar with the Fort Campbell thing. The strikes that Iran has taken on shipping up north in the vicinity of Kuwait have been, I believe, from surface-to-surface missiles up there. We've not seen any USV activity out of Iran that we've seen in the Gulf at this point.
Nor have any ships hit mines or anything.
Yeah, there's
like
been
that.
no
It's still flowing through the
There's
strait.
been no strikes that we.
One more time, right here.
Thank you so much. Heather Mullins, Lindell TV. My first question is, President Trump is set to meet with Xi Jinping in a couple weeks. How much support, if any, has China been given the Iranian regime? And then the second question, I know President Trump calling for an unconditional surrender from Iran. Given that the U.S. is working in partnership with Israel on this whole operation, is Iran expected to meet demands of both countries or just the U.S., and what are those demands?
Well, we're proud to partner with the incredible capabilities the Israelis have, but our objectives are our objectives. And so when those are met, as we meet those, we'll set the tempo of when those are met. What was the first question?
He's meeting with Xi Jinping in a couple
The president
weeks.
has a historic relationship with President Xi. They look forward to having a dynamic conversation. Two powers. President Trump ultimately has established terms of that relationship which advance the United States of America, and that meeting will continue to ensure we advance that. That's all I've got. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You've been watching Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane at the Pentagon giving answers to reporters.
That's right. They touched on a few things before taking questions, and then, of course, the press probed up from a variety of different angles. But the general said that, going into the 13th day of Epic Fury, that they expect this to be the most active day for the U.S. military. Hegseth put a number, the secretary, at about 20% more than any other previous day. And so a lot to look out for, and very, very interesting questions that came to them. And now joining us live for some analysis and reactions to the press conference is Mike Sorelli. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL veteran as well as a military analyst, and he's also the Chief Talent Officer over at Overwatch Mission Critical. I'd love to get your reactions to the press conference that just happened, Mike.
I thought Dan Kane and Pete Hegseth did a wonderful job. One, it was an update, but two, I think they were trying to refute hyperbolic left-wing narratives regarding this war. I think what people are losing sight of is Iran had, they've been ranked on different capabilities and capacities between number 5 and the 16th largest militaries. And it's been 13 days, and we've decimated them. There's fragility with the IRGC and regime. There are signals of collapse. We're not there yet. They addressed the Strait of Hormuz, which is right now sort of the center of gravity for media, which they are dealing with. But I think Americans, as well as the rest of the world, is losing sight that there needs to be a little persistence. There needs to continue to be resolve. There needs to continue to be patience. Guys, we're talking about 13 days compared to 47 years of evil. And this will result in some spikes in volatility in the energy market, which is, again, the largest concern for the world. It's temporary. It's not permanent. And I think Dan Kane and Pete Hegseth did a wonderful job of addressing that and really rescoping the success of this campaign, as well as just the amazing bravery and competence of our U.S. military force alongside the Israelis.
Yeah, and I'd like you to expand on the general's comments. He highlighted the artillery group, and he mentioned it sounds like he had maybe some sort of a video call with one of the groups and their leadership. I'd love to, having served yourself, I'd love to get your reactions to that.
Yeah, and I know what Dan is he's talking about. So the fact that when you see these young Americans forward with such pride, confidence, and again, I use the word resolve, it uplifts you. It's no different than when I was watching 18 to 20-year-old Marine infantry and Army infantry clearing the streets and fighting house to house. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Now, the artillery was crucial in the initial phases of the war, and it will continue to be. But as you heard, they're transitioning from long-range precision munitions now to what we call over-the-top munitions, which means our aircrafts have air dominance. We've got ISR assets overhead, which identify targets, pass it for precision strikes, which lead to BDAs. And, the war secretary referred to that feedback loop. So now our intelligence and strike sort of mechanism becomes quicker in this feedback loop overhead as we continue through what you can call systematic attrition of what remains of the regime. But those artillery rounds, which usually are HIMARS, which is actually, think of that as the rifle, the launch system. They're using Gilmers. They're using precision strike munitions, which is the newest long-range standoff precisions, as well as ATACMS. And those were used in the initial moments of this campaign. They've been used for the first few days, but you will see a transition to aircraft overhead, our fighters, our bombers now hitting targets in the future.
And could you just go a level deeper on what that means in terms of this shift to an over-the-top approach? Does that suggest a transition to a different stage of the campaign?
It does. We had to use these long-range precision munitions or this artillery in the initial, days of the campaign before we could what you call SEAD or DEAD, which is the suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses, before we could establish that air dominance and have a persistent, permanent presence directly over Tehran. You're talking about continuous 24/7, 365 operations with our aircrafts over the Iranian airspace. And so once we sort of achieve that, it goes into that second phase of what we call kill chain prosecution. And again, I alluded to it first. Reconnaissance assets overhead, doing hunter ops, trying to identify targets, passing that to our precision strike assets, whether it be fighters or bombers, that then prosecute those strikes, which leads to a battle damage assessment. And it creates this intelligence loop, this decision-making loop, which we do faster than any military in the world. So as we look for the remaining, call it missile launch sites or mobile launch sites, we will continue to hunt for those. Once those targets of opportunities come up, we will strike them, to include in persistent strikes on regime leadership, on any military infrastructure, command and control nodes, intelligence mechanisms, or their architecture. The regime is holding on for dear life. And as the Secretary of War referred to, their leadership has gone underground. That's the only safety. And we can hit them underground. So there will be also a focus on hitting this mosaic of underground tunnels and bunkers that hold both leadership as well as munitions, whether it's ballistic missiles or drones.
And they had said that many of these RGC teams are now going into civilian territories. What types of tactics can we use under that circumstance?
That's where the human network comes into play, and that's where the Mossad has this, I call this human web of sources, and they've long had it, even within the IRGC. So, usually we'll rely on that human intelligence or signals intelligence paired with imagery intelligence to identify if we have key leaders in civilian populaces. But therein lies the challenge. We are trying to embolden and lift up the Iranian people. We want to be very careful with strikes around the civilian populace to take out leaders, as to minimize as much collateral damage as possible. We don't want to lose the goodwill of the Iranian people, who are trying to, again, embolden to take over their government.
And Mike, pivoting a bit from what Admiral Cooper and General Kane are doing to what Secretary Hegseth must do, he took a question that was somewhat aggressive in asking why they didn't foresee certain things in the Strait of Hormuz. And his response was, he used the word shaping. In other words, we are fully aware of all of the elements, but we're not going in our briefing the press, reveal what we're going to do to the enemy. But can you elaborate on sort of the art of what the secretary has to do in terms of this concept of shaping?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the former CIA director, Leon Panetta, was very critical that the military in the Trump administration did not plan for the Strait of Hormuz. That is patently false and almost very offensive. The Strait of Hormuz was always a primary line of operations. It was a center of gravity that we understood. Why? Because the Strait of Hormuz has always been the pressure lever that the IRGC regime goes to. And if you ask why, it's because their Navy was not built to be a traditional state-on-state Navy. It was built to be a maritime harassment force that causes chaos and volatility within the Strait of Hormuz, which we know 1/5 of all oil transit or maritime shipping goes through. So, we took out their Navy at a very fast rate. We're still doing cleanup. But they understand, the IRGC, that is one of their only levers in order to create or rise the regional and global cost of war and turn the information campaign or the popularity of this campaign against the U.S. So, this will be, we're seeing the rise or the shock pricing to the energy market. But you've got to look at the long-term stability that this will cause. We're talking about stability, less volatility, predictable supply chains and maritime shipping through the Strait of Hormuz 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the line. We have not lived in this world, you and I, for our lifetime, in a world where the Strait of Hormuz is secure. And that will also increase. This is a good one for the Gulf states. multinational corporation or foreign investment risk appetite. It'll increase their risk appetite for investment in the Middle East, which is arguably already becoming a tech hub as well as a data center hub. So the problem is being addressed. We've got to give the military some time, and eventually they will utilize convoys to assist commercial shipping through the straits to lower that volatility, bring the stability, and bring the price of oil down.
I very much appreciate all your analysis and breaking down some of those military concepts for us. Mike Sorelli, good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, great insights there and some great context. And we know the president and his team are expecting the U.S. to take control in about 30 days and to be escorting those ships through the strait. But to understand more how the military and the operation itself planned for that strait and how significant it has been all the way along. It's great to get that picture there. But also all those insights he mentioned about the Iranian leadership going underground and what it takes to identify them and then to target them. And we know the operation was already exceptional that took out the first Ayatollah as part of this operation. But we'll be watching closely to see, as we know, the U.S. really is willing to take out, it seems, any leader that they're not going to be happy with. So
absolutely, yeah. I think that a lot of things came out of that press conference. Of course, addressing head-on the crash of the KC-135 refueling aircraft, not just the crash, but also the bravery of the teams that went and were able to actually recover them, which, of course, in and of itself is no easy mission. And they said that, you know, the 24-hour time frame after alerting the next of kin has not concluded yet, so that's why the names have not been released. But both laying much praise on them and their families for that tragic accident. We are in the 13th day now of Epic Fury. Secretary Hegseth saying that it will be 20% more intense today than any other day, and that they will continue to ratchet up as that feedback cycle of intelligence goes back into future strikes. And then he described this concept of shaping, which Mike Sorelli had just explained to us, this concept of sharing enough transparently with the media and the American public while also not revealing anything to the enemy about future plans. And I think that the general was very much moved in his interactions that he had with that artillery force, you know, talking about, you know, getting on a Stryker plane where the jet fuel is literally just 15 feet behind you, and how genuinely excited you know, this group of young men and women are in serving their country in this way. So yeah, a lot came out of that press conference for sure. Certainly,
both Secretary Hegseth and General Kane coming across, I think, very spirited, very determined. No doubt that's what's needed to get all the way through.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would add is that our colleague at the Epoch Times asked about this concept of going from standoff munitions to over the top, and Mike Sorelli also explaining that it shows a level of air superiority now where you don't need to shoot from afar. You're literally flying right over your targets, which signifies very much a change in the sequence of where we are in this conflict. So.
Certainly. All right, and next up, in Michigan, authorities are now investigating after a man rammed his car into a synagogue.
That's right. It's the latest incident amid rising anti-Semitism and violence against the Jewish community. Here's what we know so far.
Just outside Detroit yesterday, authorities are calling it a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. A suspect is dead after driving his vehicle into the Temple Israel Synagogue in West Bloomfield Township and then opening fire on security.
I heard a bang, which was a shot, and grabbed the staff members that were around me, and we ran into my office, which was very close by, and just barricaded the door.
Authorities say one security officer was injured and several first responders are being treated, but no one else from the synagogue was harmed. The building is also home to an early childhood center. The synagogue says all 140 students plus staff and teachers are safe. Rabbi Joshua Bennett was there when it happened.
We are just absolutely amazed at the heroism of our security team, who did exactly what we expected of them.
At the same time, we were trained, and all of our staff members, all of our teachers have been trained over the years because we expect these things to happen. We just never want them to be real.
The Department of Homeland Security identifying the suspect as Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard says police are investigating possible explosives inside his car. He couldn't confirm whether the suspect was killed by gunfire or from the blaze that engulfed the car after the crash. The FBI is now taking charge.
The FBI is here working with our state, local, and federal partners to investigate this incident, and I can confirm that we are leading the investigation right now as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community.
President Trump saying he's been briefed on the incident and promising to get to the bottom of it.
And I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today.
Condemnation also coming from Israel, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying anti-Semitism knows no limits. In a post on X, Netanyahu saying Israel is attacked because it is the Jewish state. Temple Israel in Detroit was attacked because it is a Jewish house of worship. Jewish institutions across the U.S. and other parts of the world have been operating with heightened security. It comes after the U.S. and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran.
And the FBI is investigating yesterday's fatal shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia as an act of terrorism.
Authorities say the suspect opened fire inside a classroom of reserve officers, training corps students, and it killed one and it injured two others.
The life of one of our beloved monarchs was taken far too soon, and two students were wounded. And I express my deepest condolences to the victims, their families, our campus, and our community. I want to thank law enforcement officers and the first responders who acted so quickly. Their swift response truly saved lives. Those present in the class also saved lives with their bravery and courage in taking down the shooter.
The 36-year-old suspect, identified as Mohammed Baylor Jalloh, is a former Virginia National Guard member. FBI says he has spent nearly 7 years in prison for attempting to aid the Islamic State. He was released in December 2024, 5 years before his sentence was due to end. It wasn't immediately clear why his release from prison was moved up. The FBI says it has confirmed reports Jalloh shouted Allahu Akbar before opening fire.
Students reportedly subdued and killed Jalloh. Old Dominion says the university will remain closed today, with counselors available for students, faculty, and staff.
And the Department of Homeland Security will remain partially shut for now. The Senate yesterday failing once again to advance legislation that would fund the agency. The Senate failed to get the 60-vote supermajority needed to advance the Republican proposal. Democratic lawmakers say they will not support a funding bill unless the administration changes its immigration enforcement policies. The White House and Republican lawmakers are rejecting conditions outlined by Democrats. The White House last month calling the proposal very unserious. Customs and Border Patrol and ICE operations are currently unaffected, having secured funding through 2029. But the Transportation Security Administration is feeling the effects. Absences by TSA officers who are now working without pay are disrupting travel at major airports across the country with long lines and delays.
We do have to wrap up our show here, but if you have any feedback or there's a story you'd like to see us cover, please send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. Have a great weekend.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know that.